Okay, is everyone ready? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled City Council meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, August 22nd, 7th, 2024. The time is 5:30 p.m. Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Motley.
Here.
Friedlieb.
Here.
Paulson.
Present.
Beyondich. Johnson.
Here.
Aaronzelli. Cuffey.
Present. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We move to item number 4 on the agenda, which is a public hearing. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience that would like to address the council. They're welcome to do so at this time. Is there anyone currently in the audience who would like to address the city council? Please come forward. Put the light on to green on the podium microphone. State your name for the record, and welcome to the council meeting.
My name is Lee Gorshaw, City of Virginia resident. I just want to bring up an old topic again. I still have a concern about the 15-mile-an-hour speed zone in front of the college and Newmarket School. I've been trying to find some information about how that 15 miles an hour came about. When I talked to you, Mr. Mayor, in your chambers that day, you told me that you basically didn't know anything about it on that day I spoke to you, and later I found out that you did know about it, and then when I brought it up the first time with you, it was like a tap dance. So I've been tap dancing trying to find out this 15-mile-an-hour, how this got about. The traffic study says we do not need a 15-mile-an-hour zone. The old Marquette School doesn't have a speed limit around that school right now, which is feet from the current street. And I'm just baffled why we have this 15-mile-an-hour zone there. In the Parkview School, we don't have the school signs, but we control that road with a fines double speed limit posted around the speed limit. Fines double if you're speeding past 30 miles across that school zone. There's no signs on it, but you posted fines doubles there. I still don't get it about this. Even E-Rats over by Walmart doesn't even have a school zone or a speed limit. It's 30 miles an hour. I'm just because they're a new school going to a spot, we shouldn't cater to them just for 15 miles an hour, because this is just a hassle of hindrance of putting on 15 miles an hour, and it should be 30 by the speed study by the state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gorsha. Anybody else in the general public would like to come before the council before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, move to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. The following items will be enacted by one motion unless a councilor or a citizen of the City of Virginia requests that the item be considered separately. Item 5.1 is the approval and corrections of the minutes of item 5.1A, the August 13th, 2024 council meeting, and 5.1B, the August 15th, 2024 special meeting. Item 5.3 is adoption of finance resolution number 24-016, the schedule of bills. Item 5.3 is approve pay estimate number 4 to Minnesota Boardwalks for the Silver Lake Trail Phase 2B in the amount of $23,659.75. Item 5.4, approve pay estimate number 3 to Kraus Anderson for the Public Safety Project in the amount of $1,030,146.16. Item 5.5, approve pay estimate number 1 to Utility Systems of America for the Sewer Rehab Project in the amount of $121,092.22. Item 5.6 is approved pay estimate number 4 to Casper Construction for the 2023 street project for 10th Avenue and 13th Street in the amount of $677,220.75. Item 5.7 is approve the one-day transient merchant's license for September 21st, 2024. Item 5.7A, Cortland Powell doing business as the King of Cream LLC. Item 5.7B, Shauna Blasian, doing business as Blasian's Big Red Wagon Incorporated. Item 5.7C, Melissa Rabas, doing business as Sugarlicious and More. Item 5.7D, Desiree Tomzak, doing business as Glacier Goodies. Item 5.7E, Michelle Fowler, doing business as Michelle's Dog House Grill. 5.7F, Long Cow, doing business as Oriental Orchid Food Trailer. Item 5.7G, Carolyn Mohawk, doing business as Lulu's Kitchen. Item 5.7H, Eduardo Sandoval, doing business as Oasis del Norte. Item 5.7I, Rebecca Olson, doing business as Rose Cottage Baking Company. Item 5.7J, Melinda Doles Serrell, doing business as the Rolling Cones. Item 5.7K, Donald Deering, doing business at Aunt Edmo's Homemade Chocolate Chip Cookies Incorporated. Item 5.7L, Stephen Elliott, doing business as Becky's Oriental Foods. Item 5.7M, David Capanoli, doing business as Cappy's Kettle Corn. Item 5.7N, Chloe Tran, doing business as Saigon Cafe. Item 5.70, Andrea Yearly, doing business as Cotton Candy Skies. Item 5.7P, Valerie Lehigh, doing business as Street Eats LLC. And Johnny Pompaneo, doing business as Original Euros. These are the consent agenda items before the council today. Looking for council action. Councilor Johnson,
I'd like to pull 5.3 for discussion, please.
5.3. Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson moves to pull 5.3 from the agenda for further discussion. All those in favor of 5.1, 5.2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I'll support.
Oh, I need a motion. I apologize.
Support.
Motion by
I'll move the rest of the consent
Councilor
agenda.
Johnson moves the rest of the consent agenda, and it's supported by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 5.3, approve pay estimate number 4 to Minnesota Boardwalks for the Silver Lake Trail Phase 2B in the amount of $23,659.75. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I'm just curious to know, Britt, if you have any updates on when the rest of it's coming, and do we need to incentivize them to make this happen a little quicker? They did really good there for about a week, and all of a sudden, there's been nobody around for a week, and it looked like the bridge had moved a little bit in the last storm. So I'm just concerned, one, about public safety, and two, if we need to give them more incentive to get up here and get it done.
Fortunately, don't have any more information than what we have here. I do know our engineer is working with them, and there is ramifications if they don't complete in the time frame they have, legal and fiscal ramifications if they don't complete in the time.
That would be the part of the, or about the final substantial completion date and so on and so forth.
Correct.
Okay. All right, then I will move 5.3 forward, just knowing we do have other recourse.
Councilor Johnson moves 5.3 to be approved. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, appearances. 6.1, Pete Carroll, Bar Engineering, for an update on the proposal for the Eastern Recreation Area Project. Please come forward. Thank you. Turn the podium mic to Green. Please state your name for the record, and welcome to the City Council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the council today. I'm Pete Carroll, Vice President with Bar Engineering from Hibbing, and I'm here to report on the opportunity assessment that was completed about a year over the course of the last year plus, and then a proposal that we have for the consideration by the city. So I'll just speak on that for a couple of minutes. Over a year ago, we were engaged by the city to study the opportunity really for, is there some potential for developing a recreation area on the eastern end of town? This I will say this idea isn't a completely new idea either. If you go back to even Laurentian Vision studied this back in 2001 when they were looking at a charrette for developing some recreational opportunities on that side of town. And so the scope of our work was basically to look at, is this at a very high level, concept level, feasible, and if so, which areas would be feasible? So we looked at the areas nearest town on the western fringe of the pit complex. We looked across the pit complex. We looked at areas near the landfill and the historic dumps there. We looked at areas over toward the Rockridge School and came to a conclusion that for various reasons, the area closest to town had the greatest potential, and it would help meet some of the objectives of revitalizing parts of the western part of Chestnut, or eastern part of Chestnut Street rather, and developing some opportunities for citizens and tourists to enjoy some of the amenities that could be developed there. We also conducted some informal conversations with landowners and stakeholders just to understand, where the potential exists, and that's where we drew this conclusion that the western pit rim might be a possibility. We provided a summary memo describing what some of those opportunities could be, and we include the discussion of a single track trail, potentially similar to some of the other trails that have been developed around the Iron Range over the years. Also a loop trail that would loop back through town, connect some of the amenities, some of the existing parks and things like that, and some of your other trail amenities together in sort of a figure-8 loop, if you will. It would also provide some connections from the downtown area to other residential areas for people who might want to bike or use alternative means of transportation, and e-biking and things that are becoming more popular. And then we discussed the possibility of a trailhead or a trail hub to serve some of these new potential amenities we're talking about, but also the existing trails that are there. So we all know the Mesabi Trail is there, a snowmobile trail and an ATV trail already exist in this area. We also talked about a possibility of an overlook structure. You already have an overlook structure on that side of town that I understand needs some repairs, and so this could be an opportunity to upgrade that in a significant way. So the long story short, the conclusion of our opportunity assessment is that we do think there would be an opportunity to continue to look a little bit closer at this portion of town to see if this could actually be developed from a concept level to something that could be approved and could be actually constructed. So that's what the proposal is for, is to undertake the next level of study. We have a scope that includes landowner engagement and approval. So we did some informal outreach. We really are at the beginning of the process. It's sort of an iterative process where, as you would approach landowners formally, you'd want to have an idea of what you're proposing. So we've developed some of that, but we're talking about a formal engagement process to see if there's actually a way to get a license agreement or some way to move forward, some sort of land agreement. We also talk about preliminary design, so going from these high-level concepts to something that we can understand a little bit more what we're trying to discuss building, and working with landowners in the course of that discussion to see if they would be amenable to constructing the things that we're talking about. And then the last part would be improving the cost estimate, because of course that's so important for grant writing and other things that would be important to fund a project like this. So that is the kind of high-level summary that I'll provide at this point, and happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. I know this is just a concept, and we are in the embryonic stages of taking a look at what might be possible for a recreation center in the city of Virginia, and you're looking at the east end of the Iron Range. I did have the opportunity to meet with the residents of the called the Franklin location years ago, I think back in 1997, I think, was it 1997, where the 1994, where the city of Virginia consolidated with the town of Franklin, and now is part of the city of Virginia, and we provide the full services there. There is an agreement that was signed back in the day, and with respect to this, and how their community would be affected by any future development in that regard. And I know that we did have some very frank conversations for about an hour and a half, and they asked a number of questions, and we did take a walk through the area, and based upon the concept and the information that you provided at this very early stage, we went and took a look at what could be possible, what land was owned, what land was not owned, how that could possibly affect the township of Franklin, is what I call it now, and the residents that have lived there. I think they would be looking forward to some citizens' engagement, which would be the next level to talk about what could be possible in construct of the additional conversations moving forward. So I don't have any questions. I would we'll go through the council first, and then if you had any questions from the representatives from the Franklin edition may want to come up, might have a question for Mr. Carroll and the city council as well. Councilor Motley.
I guess I don't have any questions, but I've had the privilege of being able to be in a few meetings with Pete and see some of the potential possibilities for our eastern end of town, which is just blows my mind on the possibilities and what could happen. It would be astounding for our downtown business district, and some of the things that have been talked about would be for all ages, including people that are even handicapped. So this is really exciting. It's something that's never been done before in Virginia, as far as I know. The potential is something else, but this is just the beginning stages. And I mean, there's a huge process that I don't even know how this whole thing goes, but this is just the next step. And I 150% support moving this forward if the council so chooses. So thank you, Mayor. Thanks for coming, Pete.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson, then we'll go over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Pete, thank you so much for coming. I know I've missed the last couple meetings. I apologize, but I keep getting updates from Councilor Motley, and it's very exciting. I just want to say, as we kind of begin this, we're at this definitely high level, and you have a plan for how we would take each step and go about that, so that the stakeholders or interested parties would be a part of that process.
Absolutely.
And we would be engaging all along the way as we work through some of the potentials or the opportunities, so that people, the community would not feel left out, but that they would feel engaged and heard and represented.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's part of what I think is really important. And, back in the day when I was on VITA, this would have been 16, 17 years ago, I really, really, really wanted to have that zip line across there. But now that I'm older and I have grandchildren, I'll just settle for the gondola ride. But I really want to say thank you so very much. And this, on a professional level, this actually ties into what our comprehensive study had shown with some of the multimodal types of transportation, walkability in our community, recreation possibilities. This did tie into our last comprehensive study. So I think it's going to be a wonderful thing as we go forward to see what those potential outcomes will be. And I think it does tie into where we were kind of guided during our comprehensive planning in the first place. The second thing, I think, I know there's an ask here with a budget. We're super budget tight. Are we being asked tonight to approve this in dollar value or dollar amount tonight, or is that something we can talk about and then come back to you with?
It really depends on the timing for your pursuit. We'd be happy to move forward if you're ready to approve it at this point. If you want to have more discussion and consideration, that's something we can entertain as well, so.
Okay, and then, so Sherry, I just was not, I guess, ready for this, so I didn't have the, do we have any dollars in any of our economic anything to support an expenditure?
Mayor,
Sherry?
Counselor, at this time, no, this is new to me, and it's my understanding it's going to be 1.5 million.
No, we're just talking about funding the study at this point.
How much is the study?
So the project, it's, there's three different, I guess, steps. One is a landowner engagement and approval. They put the hours in there. The total amount is $62,700. And I'm not sure if we have anywhere we can pull that in, anywhere in our budget, or if we could apply to both the Iron Range Tourism Bureau as well as the IRRB to try to offset. I don't know if we would have to do a match. And possibly, I will put the Virginia Community Foundation, that would be a no from the foundation. Okay, I'm just got my fundraising hat on. So anyway, I know we'll probably have to talk about this going forward, but I would like to see us, if we could find some funding, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much, Pete. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. So the ask for moving this forward study is $62,700. And when we are having budget talks about not funding $500 for our students to go to Youth in Action, I believe that if this is truly something that the citizens of Virginia want, they need to find the money, just like they did for the fountain and like they're doing for other things in the project in town. The thing I don't see in this preliminary study is long-term. There's nothing about long-term maintenance. There's nothing about how do we do the upkeep. There's nothing about patrolling the trails, or none of that is in here. And to me, that's a huge concern, as we are already having challenges mowing lawns in Virginia and maintaining our buildings. So it would be an interesting concept to pull people in, but the practicality of it right now just, I can't support this in any way. Again, if the citizens of Virginia want to come up with $62,700 to move it forward and donate it, I think that's great. But I will not support any taxpayer dollars going to this at this time for those reasons. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So I'd like to comment as well. I think the concept, in the concept form, I think it's worth pursuing. Where that would be, how that would be constructed, and what location is yet to be determined. This is just a concept moving forward. In my conversations with the people who live in the Franklin Addition, and I reiterated that this was just a concept. If we're going to move forward with something, we have to determine where this is going to be, how it's going to affect the current leases, or the current we have in place, the contracts we have in place, the promises that we made, and those kind of things. I understand that, but I think we could still move forward with that project if we try to align some partnerships with a variety of resources. I wouldn't be willing to approve any type of funding expenditure at this point in time for anything until we can figure out, the logistics and the dynamics of that, what money is actually needed for that, what kind of partnerships we can with the Trails Association, what money is available from the state level with respect to that, and we do have that opportunity to pursue. So I think the concept moving forward would be, I would support that, but I wouldn't support any funding at this point in time for this until we figure out what our partners could be, and more so where we're going to put this. So I think it goes for more conversation, but I'm not opposed to having this. I think it'd be an exciting piece moving forward. And if the east end of the range, or the east range of the city that's going to be selected, I think that bodes for some additional discussion about that, but I'm not willing to support any funding moving forward at this time until we be able to vet that out and have some further conversation at a committee of the whole meeting or a special meeting moving forward. So I think it's prudent to do so. Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Beyondich?
you. And I would tend to agree, only because we've had some really tough budget talks. And I know we're still working on that. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to make everything work. I love the concept, and I appreciate all the work you've done. But I also think we need to kind of figure out our budget and where everything is going to come from at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, and I thank you, Mr. Carroll, for putting this together. You have your representation procedure with the Redhead Bike Trail and those kind of things, and that's one of the reasons why we got really excited about having the opportunity to look at what could happen in Virginia, what we could have. And this is a project that's probably going to be a long-term process, years moving forward. So we have to do this incrementally and make sure that we honor all the agreements that we have and find the places that's going to go. So the meetings that I think we should have is to determine where it's going to be. Find the footprint first. Then once we have the footprint, then go, at the same time in a parallel tangent manner, look for some other funding sources and partnerships through the DNR, through the state of Minnesota, whoever it may be. So thank you for that. Appreciate that, Mr. Carroll. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So part of that, I think what you're asking for is on step one, the landowner engagement and approval, and then a preliminary design, then some preliminary cost estimating. And I understand we are completely budget tight. So would it be okay, or could we move forward to just direct city staff to maybe work on finding funding partners for this amount? And so we're not dropping it off the radar, but we would be actively seeking partnerships, whether it's private, public citizen, or private citizens, or what have you, or entities. So if we could do that, just to keep it moving forward, I would make the motion to direct city staff to work at finding partners in funding the financial ask here of $62,700.
And that's related to the concept moving forward, correct?
And it's outlined in there, yeah.
As it's outlined in there, yes. Thank you, Councilor Paulson.
I would support for discussion.
Moved by Councilor Paulson and supported by Councilor Motley to direct staff to seek funding partners for the next level of this recreation idea moving forward which would include landowner engagement and discussions with those who are affected by this. So is there any further discussion, Councilor Johnson? I'm sorry, Councilor Motley.
So this includes grant writing, Britt? Okay. And then I also agree that in light of our budget, we do need to look for funding elsewhere, but obviously I'm red light, full speed ahead on this, so with the proper funding. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Motley. Now, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will not be supporting putting staff time into this right now. There's so much going on within the city. And I truly believe that if this is something the citizens of Virginia want, they will organize and they will create an organization that will find the money, and they can work through other local organizations. So I won't be supporting any staff time or staff city resources being put into this project at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Any other questions from the elected body? Okay.
Can I ask one more thing?
Councilor
Mayor?
Motley?
Is this something, Britt, where we should put it on the call for next week if you have any updates possibly going forward? Oh, okay, if that's okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so the representatives that are here from the Franklin edition of the City of Virginia, for the lack of a better analogy, you can see that we have, this is simply a concept moving forward, and our discussions at your neighborhood engagement that you invited me to, you can see that this is just a concept at this point in time, and we still have a lot of work to do moving forward. And the motion on the floor is to direct staff, we haven't voted on it yet, but to direct staff to seek funding for the potential next step in this process by having engagement with the community and try to determine, what can be done, what's possible, and in conjunction with the project moving forward. So thank you for coming. Please state your name for the record, and welcome to the City Council meeting.
Hi, Paul Hayda, resident of Franklin.
Paul?
We're not against your concept. What we're looking at is the location, your footprint, as you're saying. From what the information we got, it's going to be right across the street from us. We don't appreciate that. As we discussed the other day, a little bit further north, okay? And yeah, it's got some nice stuff, but, and again, going forward like this, as you're talking about your budget, try to find it, yeah, if you can find it. But again, our biggest thing is none of us were really talked to. I don't think you probably, I don't know, you've probably been down there, haven't you? Okay. And then you're talking landowners. We are landowners. My wife and I and my son own 3 properties there. So, but, and biggest thing is the dollars, your location, and then keeping up with us. I've talked to Brett a couple of times, and Mike and I have gone in, and that's the biggest thing is we have a nice peaceful area there, as you called it. What did you say? It was quiet and serene?
Serene.
Yeah, that's what it was. So, and that's what we like. So, and that's why we bought that property from the city, and then I moved the town hall, and I built a house on that corner for that purpose, nice and quiet. I lived 2 doors up from 2nd Avenue on 11th Street for a number of years, and we sure do like Franklin a lot quieter, so, and that's how we would like to keep it. And pretty much everybody, there's a number of us here, and then there's a few that couldn't make it, but they say they would prefer too that it's moving more, away from our area. So, and like I said, we're not against the concept, but it's just the location and the funding is the biggest thing. So, and that's one thing you really got to look at. As I talk to a few people and they say, why are they doing this? They should be fixing roads. Well, it's good to have recreation also, but it's still, some type of a priority maybe is something to look at too, so. But.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you, Mr. Hayda. Before, if I may, subject to our conversation there, the purpose of this motion is to direct staff to look for other funding sources outside the budget to help fund any additional progress moving forward. And that would be, the purpose of that would be, if the funding was to be found and the city voted to move forward, that next step in this process would be citizen engagement, owner engagement, landowner engagement, and you would have a voice to say how we're going to do this. And so during that process, the landowner engagement will help us determine if we're going to move forward with the project, where it's going to be, and how it's going to affect the citizens, particularly those who live in the Franklin addition. So it's not going to something that's a budgeted item. I think at this time, I think Councilor Paulson was looking if there was additional funding for that, and that we had the money for that, we could consider that. But sometimes you have to leverage funds to get funds from other entities. But the motion on the floor at this point in time is just to seek additional funding from other sources outside the budget to try to move the idea or the concept forward. And the part of that concept would be engagement with landowners. Councilor Friedlieb.
Well, Paul, I appreciate the fact that you are not opposed to the concept because there is great potential for recreational opportunities there. But you talk about further north, so like I'm thinking in terms of like where the existing burned out overlook is, if it was established that far north, is that far enough north?
Well, to a point, and for that overlook that's proposed, you could redo something there.
Right.
And then, but
So
yeah.
from your perspective as a resident there, that far north would be potentially acceptable to the
Well,
Franklin?
there's quite a bit of land there, and that is, a big part of that is the state. If on your maps that you had, it was the color coding, and then
I'm just trying to figure out how we could move forward without an imposition on your neighborhood, and I'm just wondering if.
Yeah, a
that would be
little bit
fine.
further north wouldn't be bad.
Okay.
And then, and again, like, I think Councilor Johnson had mentioned about maintaining it and watching it, and my conversations with RGGS, they're very strict on that, and, well, there's probably not right now much going on with them, but liability insurance, the blight issues, the fence maintenance, homeless, camping, they're chasing people left and right.
Traffic.
Yeah, and most of our people that we see with their bikes, they're very nice, you know, and we, once in a while, we get ATVs on there, but we get to stop them and we give them directions for the trail, because now it's better signage, but, and then, the one thing, go back to RGGS, is that Houston, Texas is the main headquarters, and they could just say no to anything that, as far as dealing with RGGS. And then I've talked with Cleveland Cliffs land manager too, and I don't think there's much as far as that, but, and again, they have issues with the fencing and the homeless and what have you. And part of that doing this without proper, somebody watching over it, you might have the issue of homeless there, especially if you're putting toilets or something, you know, restrooms. And I talked to the two gals at the laundromat on Friday. They had a good surprise Tuesday morning, buck naked, laying in front of their door as they pull up to go to work. Thursday morning, pile of rocks by their door. Surprise under the rocks. So, and it's going on. I put up 7 cameras on my property, and I quelled a lot of people there. They walk by, they pull their hat down, or they put their hoods up, and they do kind of stay out of our alley, but for a while there, it was getting pretty bad, but, and, you know, that's a whole nother part of it, but still, you know, is, like the trailhead is gonna be a building more likely, or? Okay, but as far as restrooms and stuff, because you gotta have some type of amenities for people. So, and again, you gotta oversee that, and,
But your initial opposition would be, and the imposition to your neighborhood would be if
Right,
it's
yeah.
built like just
Because,
east of the.
I don't have that in front of me,
Laundromat.
but the one diagram is showing that it's gonna be right there
Across the street.
on the edge of Chestnut
Right.
Street.
But if we moved it north, that's a
Yep.
potential.
We'd feel much better
alleviating-
about it, yeah.
Alleviating some of the
Yeah,
concerns.
and
Okay.
our
Thank you.
green space, and we like to look in the woods and, you know, it's right across there, because we are right on the corner.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. And if we were able to procure funding, Mr. Hayda, that's the next step with owner engagement, and that's all part of looking at what we're doing. It's, like I said, it's years in the making. It'd be some blight remediation, neighborhood revitalization, take care of some of the issues that you described at our meeting the other day at your house and then here today. And so it will help that. And so our goal and objective, and I told you, and I promised you at that meeting from me personally, not on behalf of the council, for me personally as one vote, that I support the concept moving forward. I wouldn't support it if it was built right within the curtilage of Franklin. I want to make sure that, like I said, the serenity and the privacy that you need and expected based on the 1994 agreement would be intact, but we could still move forward with that concept a little bit farther north toward the end. We walked that area, and you pointed out some of those things, and we saw the homeless that were back there, and so all that can be remediated. And this is a concept where there are parks like this all over the state of Minnesota. We explored the one up on Honda Hills. We're still exploring that. We explored the one down below the bridge, which was authorized by the state. So we're looking for other opportunities moving forward, and this is a long-term process. So if we were to procure funding, and if this vote passes, and we procure the funding, then that's when owner engagement comes in, that you'll be intricately involved in the discussions as our staff and Mr. Caro and his and Bar Engineering moves forward.
okay, thank you. Yeah, like I said, we're not against the concept, but,
Yeah.
and then like part 2, touching that funding. So that's, a lot of people say, woof, 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 you know. it's-
And understandably so. If I was living in the Franklin addition, as you have built a new home there, and And I know Mr. Riley has a beautiful home that he maintains in there. And I understand the reason why you're there. And I think we are all cognizant of that. We're all sensitive to that. And we don't want to usurp the environment in which you live and what you expect. And so, but this concept is just the concept. And when the owner engagement comes with our staff and with Mr. Carroll and his staff and all of the residents there, well, if we could find if we move forward with that, we can find an agreement where it's not going to encroach on your environment. So, and does one moment, Mr. Peta, Councilor Beyondich.
And I appreciate you coming. I appreciate all of you coming. And I think, speaking with Pete early on, engaging everybody into the plan. It's not something that's just going to happen, that you'll be part of it. So I appreciate you coming and saying, but I think as the plan, if it moves forward, that's part of it, is working with all of you there. So, okay?
And
Thank you.
definitely, that's what we want to be involved
Yes.
in too, so.
Right.
But one more comment that's not related to this. On behalf of Mayor Cuffey, please speak into your microphones so the people can hear. So Steve or Councilor Johnson picks us up and talks into it, but sometimes you should listen to yourselves on
A little
TV.
closer to the mic.
A little closer to the mic. I used to do that stuff for 22 years, so.
I was going to
Okay. We should remain cognizant of that, Mr. Hill.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The,
So, yes, you are correct. We
Right.
don't speak loud
So-
enough. Thank you.
it doesn't hurt to move them a little bit, so. And I don't know how many, I think I put 2 or 3 systems in this council chambers when I was working, so. Thank you.
Mr. Hayda. Mr. Riley, did you have something you'd like to add here? Mr. Riley, who was the former mayor of Franklin and really is mayor pro tem still. Mr. Riley.
Mr. Carroll, you're aware of the history. I got to speak into the microphone here. You're aware of the history of our neighborhood.
A little bit.
And we're not, as Councilor Friedlieb asked Paul, we're not an addition to Virginia so much. We are a separate city, you know that. Okay, we did our own maintenance, street, alley, everything. We contracted with the police, so it's a little different encroaching on an addition, like you say, Fintown addition, as it is to, we were a former city and we have covenants and conditions when we did consolidate with the city of Virginia. You know that, you're aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. You've read them?
I haven't read all the conditions.
You should.
Yeah.
Okay, and like where this trailhead parking and all this is, that can be shifted north, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if I can speak.
Yes, please, Mr. Carroll, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, if I could just reiterate, I think it's really great to hear the input and what people's concerns are and what the concerns of the council are as we consider this project. To reiterate what the mayor said, this is really ground zero, just a very preliminary concept, and these items of where things could be located, what they would consist of, how much they would cost, are design details that we could get into and want to have engagement with all the people who need to be at the table, the landowners, the citizens. So I encourage you, as you're looking at the maps, to not take them as the design. It's you have to understand from an engineering perspective, you have to start with something. You have to start with a concept that people can look at and react to, and that's what this is. It's a starting place. So really we're at 0 to 1% of a concept right now that would get refined as we go through all these stages that we're talking about. So just because it shows up on a map, that does not mean that it's finally designed there. We understand all of the details that go into citing something, those would all be part of the design conversation that we'd talk about going forward, and the public engagement conversation. So really, I just want to reiterate that don't take everything that you see on paper as gospel. It's just really the starting point. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Few final comments, Mr. Riley?
Well, again, just, it's a little different when you're like Lancy Edition, Vets Edition, just Pillsbury Edition. We were a city, and we did the city of Virginia a great favor. They approached, you guys approached us, and we want you guys to remember that. And speak into your microphone, so when we watch, you're about 2 feet away from yours right now, and you're one of the worst violators. Pull it towards you so people can hear you. You can't hear you back there. But that's all.
I appreciate that, Mr. Riley, and thank you all, Franklin Addition personnel and all the residents of Virginia and the Franklin Addition. Thank you for coming, and I think hopefully Mr. Carroll has given some clarity, and the motion on the floor is to direct staff to maybe direct staff to look at some funding, outside funding sources to help move this process forward to the next step, which would include the engagement of the landowners like yourselves. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Friedli.
Just one last comment. First, I want to thank Pete for all the work that you've already done for the concept and enlightening us all to the recreational opportunities that do exist there. I appreciate that. Not to reiterate what Councilor Johnson's already said, but I'm kind of the mind that we are not really budgetarily poised in this city to use city resources to move forward with this project. I really think it needs to be independently resourced, and that's what we need to explore. And so I would be voting against moving forward with utilizing city staff at this point to move that forward. But in some other fashion, it will continue. There will be continued discussions with regard to this. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Friedli. But it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley.
Britt, how much city staff does it take to write a grant to the IRRR?
One.
Okay, so
It doesn't take me very long.
can you tell me time frame of how long it takes to submit a grant to the IRRR if we were going to do it tonight?
Maybe total of 3 hours, maybe.
Okay, so 3 hours to write a grant that we possibly have a chance at getting for $62,700. That wouldn't be taxpayer money. 3 hours to move something forward that has the potential to be huge. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and once again, last comment, this is just a concept. If it moves and we don't want to move it forward, we don't move it forward. But in order to have citizens' engagement with an engineer, it's important, I think, to have that funding source available so you go to the next step, so you can talk to the residents that are affected by it. And if it doesn't go any farther than that, it doesn't, but at least the residents have a voice, and that's the reason I'm going to support this, so they have that opportunity to voice their opinion in a formal manner based upon a concept moving forward. If it doesn't move forward, it doesn't move forward. No decision is going to be made that's going to adversely affect anybody. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Beyondich,
Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Aaronzelli. Yes. Cuffey,
Aye.
Motley,
Yes.
Friedlieb,
No.
Paulson.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Okay, move to item 7 on the agenda. Unfinished business, the clinical lease. Let's skip this particular update. Our city attorney is in conference right now for a few minutes, and he'll be back, and we'll revisit that. He may have some updates about that. So item 8 is discussion items. Item 8.1, adopt a resolution to reauthorize membership in the 4M Fund. And I would ask Sherry to give for the information for the general, the 4M Fund, and the reason that we're reauthorizing the membership in this fund. Sherry?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and public. This is, 4M Fund is one of our investment funds. Yes, we already have it on our January financial investment accounts, but the bank itself wants this resolution updated because the last one they have on file is in 1989. So they actually sent us the form and said, please, that we have an updated resolution specifying the 4M with the city.
Okay, thank you.
I will move the resolution.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the resolution to reauthorize the membership of the 4M Fund. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Paulson for discussion. Further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sherry, what, is this a specific, is it a certain bank designated with this as well?
Well, it's actually the investment firm. Right now, we have our, some of our bond money in there. There's some really good offerings for the CD rate. It is one of the Northland Securities suggested funds.
Please, okay.
Right.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. 8.2, adopt a resolution to approve the Rock Ridge Youth Hockey Association to conduct an off-site gambling at the Ontario Mortgage Event Center on January 28th, 2025.
Support.
Moved by Counselor, was it Paulson? Supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.3, adopt a resolution to apply for and accept funds from the IRRR for revenue bonds for Essentia Health. Sherry, you want to give us a little more information about that? I'm sorry, Counselor Johnson.
That was going to be my question, to have some more
Thank you.
information.
More clarity, please.
I'm going to have to, well, actually, I'm going to ask Britt to explain this a little better, but this was back.
At the end of the legislative
Right.
session, money came to Virginia for Essentia, and we responded, we didn't apply for that money, and they said it's coming anyway. And
So
that's,
this is a legislative mandate by a bill that was sponsored by, I think, Senator Hochschild and Representative Liz Lagarde, where Essentia Health was getting some money for their emergency room upgrades, okay? And it's normally money that would go to the IRRB. It's tax money, and the IRRB would determine where the money would go. But this is special legislation, which is unprecedented in recent times, where this money was allocated by direction of a state legislator that directly allocated $3 million to Essentia. Actually, it says to the city of Virginia for the hospital. So it's passed through, it goes through us, and we give the money to Essentia. So that's what this is. It's revenue bond that was given by the legislature, by a law, to give that money to Essentia for that. It's not money to the city of Virginia like it says in the legislation. It's for Essentia Health. It says that as well. So that's what this is. Councilor Johnson.
And I'll ask, because I ask these questions, and what if we don't? What if we don't want to be the pass-through for this financing?
it would be just like us telling them that we don't want any money ever from the state ever again.
I figured that was the answer. I will hesitantly make this motion to authorize the resolution.
Councilor
support
Johnson
for
makes a motion to move, and Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
You know, I was a little irked when I saw the listing of the monies that were appropriated when it said it was going to the city of Virginia, because it was not in fact going to the city of Virginia. We were being used as a pass-through. And so sometimes when you see what monies are being appropriated for, it isn't an accurate account of what they're being appropriated for. And I hate to say it, and it's no disrespect, but it's sort of a corporate welfare check, in my opinion. Essentia Health is thoroughly capable of funding the things that they need to fund to do whatever they need to do. Of course, you're not going to come out in opposition to this, and probably I could get in trouble for even speaking what I'm speaking. Nobody's going to be opposed to having an upgrade to the emergency room in Virginia, obviously. And so that's why most people kept their lips zipped. And I probably should have, but I just have to say that I'm glad that this money went to where it needs to go, but it went in a way in which I I take exception to, because it indicated that we were receiving money when in fact we were not. A corporation was receiving tax-funded money to be able to improve our emergency room capabilities in Virginia, which of course we would all be for, but not in the manner in which it was done. I guess that's what I took exception to. So thank you for that time.
And just additional clarification, when we were down at the legislature, talking with Senator Hochschild and with Representative Linsgaard and through with lobbyist Jarek and Associates, all the angst, the committee is well aware that this is not for the city of Virginia, but yet the law was written and then they passed it through the tax committee, which I think Representative Linsgaard is part of the tax committee. So
But the city of Virginia is very positively impacted by this happening.
that was the argument, yes. And that there was discussion about, well, this is not going to affect any funding that the city of Virginia will receive. It is that $3 million is going to say, well, we gave it to the city of Virginia, we're not going to give anything in the bond bill next year. They understand that. But it was an allocated of funds directly to them instead of going through the IRRB for dissemination. So there is the term I'm looking for is, there's no latitude. They don't have it. There's no choice. It has to be done that way. So that's the way it happened, and so that's the explanation. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Very good points. But what I'd like to ask is, yes, we have to approve this. Is there an administrative fee that the city can charge to be the administrator of this pass-through of these funds? And if so, do we need to include that in the resolution language?
I have asked that question. I haven't got the answer yet. And it wouldn't be this resolution. What I would expect that this resolution is needed because they're doing a bond sale similar like we do.
Okay.
And they have to have it in by August 30th to the auditor's office, state auditor's office to do the bond sale. I think that if we are able to do an administrative fee, that we do an agreement between Essentia and the city, that we're going to apply for this grant for you, we're going to be your pass-through, you're going to comply with all the prevailing wage rules, you're going to do the public bidding laws, you're going to do all that, and in return, you're going to pay us this much to monitor that you're doing all those things that we're saying that you're going to do.
Because that also is staff time.
That will be staff time, because they are really cracking down on the prevailing wage information right now and requiring more reports than they've
So I
required
would
in
like
years,
to,
so it's going
I
to
would
be a
like
little
to
bit.
follow up on that
Yeah,
with you.
so at the committee of the whole next week, we should probably talk about creating an agreement
Okay.
to Essentia.
And then just upon Googling, Essentia Health has obviously a foundation. It would be my recommendation to apply for a health grant from Essentia. They specialize in giving grants for those communities or nonprofits' efforts to make a healthy difference in communities. And a recreation, biking, walking, recreation would more than likely be considered a healthy opportunity in the community of Virginia. So it would be my suggestion to look into that as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brett.
Before we act on that, we have a motion on the floor. Again, adopt the resolution to apply for and accept funds from the IRRB for the revenue bonds for Essentia Health. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley.
So just listening to Councilor Paulson, it is a intuitive to, or how do I want to say this, to support this. Can we still go forward with what next week at the cow for the, okay, thank you,
Separate
Mayor.
motion, yes. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Councilor Paulson?
I don't have another motion. It was just
Very
a
good. Okay, thank
suggestion
you.
as I was reading about their foundation.
Hey, let's move back to item 7.1 on the agenda. We have our city attorney back in the chair. 7.1, the clinic lease. Any updates on that, Mr. Lindsay?
No direct updates. That being said, we are meeting this week, I believe, Thursday afternoon. We'll be getting together for another meeting. At that meeting, we are expecting a development. We are expecting that there'll be some sort of proposal brought to us at that meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Do you need any type of direction from us at this time, or are we going to wait to see what they propose and then we'll have that discussion?
We'll wait to see what they bring up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We vote on that? Did already? Thank you. Okay, move to item number 8.4. Adopt a resolution to apply for and accept funds from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety Construction Grant.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Motley. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.5, adopt a resolution to apply for and accept funds from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety Geo Construction Grant.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Freely. Is there further discussion?
Mayor, if I can clarify, the reason why there's two grants is, if you recall, we got the initial $9 million for the Public Safety Center, and then we got that extra $2 million, two different pots of money. So two different resolutions, two different.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
There was that money for the construction overage.
Inflationary cost,
Yeah, the
yeah.
material costs, yes. So moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Move to item 9, committee reports. Item 9.1, the committee of the whole meeting that was held August 20th, 2024. We'll turn this portion of our city council meeting over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. At the August 20th Committee of the Whole meeting, we did have an appearance by Gabe Zika from the Iron Range Half Marathon Committee. It was a great, significant turnout with a lot of support. They raised $20,000 for charity. It was a really exciting event, and we really hope that next year they are able to come back and do this again. It's exciting to see something like a half marathon on the Iron Range. Then Matt Reed from STH was present to discuss some construction projects going on in Virginia. Some of the things are starting to wrap up, while just a few of them are starting to get started. The 18th Street North culvert work should be beginning soon. So if you travel north on 53, you see the construction up there. If you travel anywhere in Virginia, you can see the construction everywhere. Construction on 12th and 12th Street and 12th Avenue and 13th Street by Grandma's Restaurant in the intersection will be starting the first week of September. Will cause a temporary road closure in that intersection, and this is unfortunately at the same time that the 2nd Avenue is closed between 8th and 10th Street South, so we really apologize, and we ask that you follow the detours while you're going around town. We're doing our best to make them as clear as we can. Mr. Reed gave an update on Borgen Road and the active transportation grant. MnDOT is proposing a 6-foot walking trail rather than the 10-foot that we had planned, just due to the terrain and the layout of the area there. It does meet our guidelines for the active transportation grant at 6 feet. And he was just an update to let us know that was going on with that. It was to be treated as more of a sidewalk for snow removal than a walking trail, which is almost better for the city for maintenance, but that's a good thing. And Mr. Reed did discuss the extension that was requested from the 2023 street project, the 10th Avenue and 13th Street construction portion. It was moved and supported to approve the change order number 2 from Casper Construction, requesting the contract extension for the 2023 street project for 10th Avenue and 13th Street South to October 12th, 2024.
I'll move the resolution.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the resolution, supported by
All support for discussion.
Councilor Freely. For further discussion, I have some discussion as well. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, just a reminder that when these contract extensions are proposed to us and we grant that was ahead of being informed that was going to cost us, because there's additional costs incurred for continued oversight on that project for those additional 30 days. So I think in the future, we'd want to know that in the opposite direction. We want to know that we are going to be incurring costs for this extension before we approve the extension, just kind of an FYI. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Well said. Before we move in this, I think this is the time to bring this up. The residents that live on 11th Street South, and many residents are affected on the avenue, but 11th Street South, that little L curve where it connects from onto 12th Avenue and then onto 13th Street there. The residents have been significantly impacted as a result of the construction. And I think there's a lack of communication with the construction project manager moving forward. I've had some significant discussions, a number of discussions with Matt Reed, who has to have to go out there and correct the issues and make some adjustments to the area. So there was a water break today at a water line. Water was out. No notice to the customers moving forward. They were out of water. And so I get a call. I go down there, and there's no water. Call the public utilities. It was an emergency water break. They were trying to fix it. They were supposed to fix it in a couple hours. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they still wasn't fixed, and there was a promise they would have it done in 45 minutes or so. And so I'm going to ask Jean a real quick question in a moment here. She lives on 11th Street South. And then the heavy equipment is going down the alley, but where those garages are. And there was a portable latrine that was pushed on somebody's property where a garage would have been built without the owner's permission. Moving heavy equipment up and down 11th Street over the curb. We just put a new sewer line or storm sewer line in there this last year, and those big heavy equipment, those big loaders are driving over it, actually cracked one of the curbs there, and then it's starting to sink a little bit. So, and then one of the water drain, the water drain on the other side of the street is covered by piles of dirt for this construction project. And along the boulevard and along the roadway system, there's these pipes, whatever the line pipes for the construction lane. They're all laying in the boulevard on the sidewalk, and you can't get down there. And then in addition to that, there's a woman that, I won't mention her name, 85 years old, who has a driveway there, and one of the only driveways that's affected by that construction down there, and the trailer's been parked in front of there. She can't get her vehicle out. This is a third time this has happened. And so some communication, I think, is necessary to try to meet with the construction superintendent on that particular project to try to negate any further issues. I understand the emergency issue with respect to the water main that had to be fixed. That was an accident, but so there's some issues there we have to discuss. But during the course of this project, once it gets done, I think we have to have a conversation about, what damage has been done and would they have to repair that. So driving these loaders over the sidewalk and on the boulevard, maybe it's necessary to get that project done. Maybe that's the only way they can do it. But there's been no communication with the residents who live there, and they've been adversely affected significantly as a result of that. So I think we have to do something there. So this will be the time. Do you have water yet? At 11 after 3, you don't have water, so thank you. So I think we have to do something about that. We have to meet with them. We have to determine if there's any damage done that has to be repaired. I'm sure there's a holdback with respect to some of the payouts, and then we'll have to figure that out. But just on everybody's radar, I think we have to take some action to ensure that the integrity of that roadway is put back the way it was originally, and ensure that they're not using private property to access without permission. And there was a loader that was operating right between the two garages on a property owned by a resident there, and big ruts are in the grass, you can't mow it. So those things have to be addressed. I know that we will address those, but I want to publicly indicate that it was. And so I know we're going to be voting on this, but I think it's important to bring it up at this point in time before we go to Councilor Paulson. Did you want to say anything, Jean? Come on up. I'm sorry, 12th Street South. as a former city as a former city councilor used to say, I stand corrected. It's 12th Street South. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gene. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just kind of, let me go back if we could. When Matt Reed was here and we talked about this change order was extending the deadline, and I wanted assurance that we were not going to be getting charged because we are extending this deadline. And I don't want to approve the deadline if they're going to come back with, to us with additional charges. So I know that he had said that they were independent of themselves. Us extending this does not mean that they will have change orders, but I want to make it clear that I will not vote to pass a change order, period, if they do come back.
I think
And I don't want my decision on this to be contingent.
I concur.
I just don't, I mean, I don't want to make this decision because really, if we don't approve this request to extend, then they're in violation. And then what happens at that point? Do we get money off the project? We just would have to, okay, so that would not be a good situation. But I don't live very far from here, and I see what's going on. My other thought process is Casper, this company was the company that we had issues with in Midway. We have had issues with this company in the past. I think even when we awarded this, I had questioned why we were awarding this company this bid. So I would like to have our project manager, Matt Reed, reach out, and I would like a full update to the council on this particular project. Because it's not only that, but it's a nightmare now that they're closing the street. And I don't know if that was their projected time frame that to close, what is it, in front of Grandma's, 10th, 13th, and 10th? So that's, back to school is starting. We can't, buses are going to have a really hard time. Our ambulance or fire, any of our EMS is going to have a hard time. So I'm just not really happy with the way that this has been conducted. And I know I mentioned that to you before our meeting started. So just so I can get clarification, if I move to, or if I vote yes to approve this and this move passes, is the council under any obligation if they bring forth a change order during this extension time that they had a water break or equipment is sitting or whatever, are we under an obligation to pay a change order by granting this?
Mr. Lindsay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Counselor, the answer to the question is, this passing the change order to amend the time does not necessitate, doesn't require that other change orders for cost be approved. However, the next item on the agenda is a change in cost, essentially. The cost goes to a different party, but it's a direct cost related to this extension of time.
And it's my understanding that this is within the construct of the contingency fund. Thank you. Councilor Freely?
I guess, like, when you talk about things that are been damaged that would need to be returned to their original status, so to speak, I would hope that SEH would be the person that would move forward with negotiating that being accomplished without a change order, that we would incur the cost for it. And Casper would, in fact, have to absorb those costs within their contract. So, I mean, SEH, the additional costs that we'd be paying them for the extension that we're providing, they would be the go-to person to potentially alleviate us from another change order that would be repairing curbs and or driveways or whatever that they damaged during the course of the construction. See what I'm saying? We might make it a wash there, potentially, is what I'm looking at.
Well, there, in the construction documents, there's provisions for any other outside the scope of the work. If there, during the course of the scope of the work, and please correct me if I'm not accurate, Mr. Lindsay, out of the scope of the work, then if they damage something, they're obligated or required under the contract to repair and fix that thing without us incurring any specific costs. And maybe we withhold funds from that or how that works, but it'll go through our engineering department as well. Does that make sense, Mr. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, that does make sense. And what I would suggest to the council is that change orders are sometimes used too little or used too much. And so in the example that the mayor's just used, I agree that most contracts would provide, or the law that surrounds the contracts provides that if in doing the work that you're doing, you do damage outside of the project, you should have an obligation to repair that work at no cost. That being said, I think what we would want to do as a city, if the change orders are being used appropriately, we would want to use a change order to expand the scope of the work to include that repair work and just indicate that it would be done at no cost, because you would want it legally within the scope of the contract.
And this is the next item.
Clarify.
Please do.
This contract does not expire, is actually, the work will not be completed till '25. And then there's a 1-year warranty period after that, that they have to be responsible for anything that's damaged or has been, so we've got a lot of time yet with this contract to correct things that we may see wrong. Although, as we learned with our last project, 8th Avenue, some of the things didn't pop up until next spring. We went through a whole winter before things were found that weren't working or weren't right. So we have ability and time to find things and correct them as we go along.
And in addition to that, the next item on the agenda is actually what your issue is, Councilor Freely, to approve the professional services, which according to item 9.1B would come out of the contingency fund moving forward. So you please continue with your comments, Councilor Freely, and then we'll move to Councilor Paulson.
And I guess what I'm saying is I think that with that continued oversight and the additional investment of the $7,500 could then alleviate the potential for other costs incurred for further change orders, is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Does anybody have, I don't see it in our packet, when was the completion date supposed to be final? And I guess what I'm asking for a reason. We're being asked to continue substantial completion date of on or before October 12th. Is it extending it like 30 days?
August 30th, so in 3 days.
How many days?
3 more days. It was supposed to be done by August 30th.
Okay, so how many, give me the days that
To
were,
October 12th.
yep.
6
How many
weeks,
days?
7 weeks.
42 days extension.
42 days? Yep, but where I'm going with this is the next item. We're being charged $81,000 to oversee this for 43 days? That's what SEH is asking for in the next? That's not how I understood it when Matt was here. So I don't know that I want to approve either one of these things. He's got $81,800 listed as managing the additional time management of the project. And I know we have money in the budget, there's money in the budget, but $81,800 to manage it for 43 extra days?
That's a not to exceed, yeah.
It says 81.8, construction observation. Right here, not to exceed 86,500. So it's only an additional 7,500, or is it? No?
The hourly basis not to exceed 86,500.
Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. So I did question the supplemental professional agreement with SEH, and I did call Matt because I don't know what page it is in your packet, but it's the 3rd page of your supplemental agreement where they had an hourly rate of $79,470 for construction staking and $81,800 for observation. He said the total should be $86,500. So the 79 was just an error. So the total is $86,500. So I did verify with him.
For a continuation of 43 days.
Up to 86.5.
Up to.
It's an hourly basis, so how many hours they spend, we pay a dollar amount per hour. No, for the
No,
hours
for
from the
43
extended
days.
time from August 30th to October 12th. We pay per hour to have the people there observing the project. Up to 86.5. It doesn't mean it's going to be 86.5, it means it's up to.
Make it 86.
That's what I thought when he was here, but our resolution in our packet is different than that.
So,
The 4,700 plus the 81.
Construction
Sorry,
in our
it's
packet.
86.5, sorry.
Yep,
Yeah.
for construction staking, it's $4,700. For observing, says construction observation, up to $81,800 for a total not to exceed $86,500.
Correct. 86.5 is not to exceed.
Yeah, within a 43-day period.
Yep.
Yeah, I won't vote for that. So if
So-
I don't, so by voting yes on the extension, what does that do? If we vote no, what happens?
The project could stop on the 30th.
I don't want the
And
project
then
to
if
stop.
we won't vote for the SEH to be there, there'd be nobody watching Casper to verify what's going on.
so that bodes another question then, moving forward. In the construction documents, and reading through those, it's rather complicated from my perspective as a layperson, but a lot of, in some of these contracts, and I would refer to our city attorney, has built in that, that if they go beyond the scope of where they're supposed to do, so say they were supposed to complete it by August 28th, and they weren't able to do so, minus the rain delays and those kind of things, that any time over that, then they would be subject to a fine or an additional cost associated with being over. So if we gave them the extension, you can approve the extension, but there could be a cost for that for each day or whatever the case may be. So I would ask some for clarity and some information from our city attorney, Brian Lindsay. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. So the purpose of the change order extending the time is to avoid, so what, I think, Mayor, what you're referencing is a liquidated damage provision.
Yes, yes.
That applies a specific rate to the number of days beyond substantial completion. What the first change order does is it extends the amount of time, it extends the date for substantial completion, which delays our ability to collect those costs. So your liquidated damage provision typically doesn't begin or doesn't kick in until after the substantial completion date, and we'd be setting that out till October 12th.
So then then the follow-up question to that is, if we approve it beyond that, then that applies. If we don't approve it, the extension today, and we look to recover some liquidated damages, can some discussion be made about the fact if we were to give you a 30-day extension or an extension to October the 12th, that in lieu of the liquidated damages we're waiving, right, basically, that any additional cost for engineering services associated would have to be paid by the contractor. Now, that's something we could talk about, right?
That it's all contractual, so everything is on the table.
So by not approving the change order request for the contract extension, then that triggers the liquidated damage clause of the contract. Therefore, we would have to have some conversation about, we're not going to give the extension, we're going to go with the liquidated damages, and so you have to complete the project. They can't get it done by August 30th. They need to do that. So in order, maybe the discussion would be that damages or the fees that have to pay to SEH would be borne by the contractor as asking for the extension. So, but that's all contractual, and it's all negotiable, right? So, but then the final question would be then, if we didn't approve it, would all construction cease, or would that continue?
That's, Mr. Mayor, that's not known. I mean, because the company may say, if we don't get the extension, we're going to cease operations. It would be counterintuitive because, I mean, they would still go into a liquidated damage process. I mean, essentially, they've come asking for negotiation to extend, and if we simply said, no, we're not negotiating to extend, it creates a difficult legal position. But at the end of the day, that when the August 30th date comes and goes, we'd be technically beyond substantial completion.
Okay, so peeling away the onion, for the projects to move forward, I just think that the contractor should be borne the responsibility of paying those additional engineering fees, so it doesn't come out of the city's pocket, it comes out of their contract fees. So I don't know how that works, but, and I know it's, we're in a public setting where we're making I am making some suggestions of some options to consider moving forward, but I think it has to be, Britt?
This is federally funded project. And so we have the budget and the money to the dollar amount that includes a project contingency, which covers more than what SCH is looking for.
Right.
Matt, on page 75, Matt very clearly explained in there that there's 4 crews working there right now because they were behind. So they brought in, there was originally 1 or 2 crews, now there's 4 crews. So they need 4 supervisors. If we don't have somebody watching that from the construction management standpoint, we could potentially not get our federal funding for this project, so we wouldn't get reimbursement. There's just a lot of things in this one, and the depth of that hole, if you ever went by it, was 30 to 40 feet, it was 40 feet deep. 30 wasn't big enough. They had to get another backhoe that was bigger because the one they had didn't reach to where we were gonna have to go to dig these things. There was just unprecedented delays, the June spring storm, the things happen. So, it's, SCH has not, what I've seen, ever charged us egregiously, especially by hour. By hour is better than a set fee. So if they're only there for, instead of being there for the 8 weeks they're anticipating, it's only 4 weeks, and we only pay for the 4 weeks and not the 8. It's an hourly fee.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Britt.
And Matt is on his way into town. He was watching the meeting. It takes him 15 minutes, he will be here, because it's not fair to talk about the firm without them being here, so he's on his way to come.
Okay, we'll wait for, hopefully Matt will be done. We'll be here before we get done, but I'll have Counselor Paulson continue with her thought process, and then we'll go over to Counselor Johnson. No, you're good? Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson, you have anything more to add?
Well, I am on the payment page, which is where Matt, so it's on page 77, and I'll wait till he gets here to talk about this. But that was my understanding, was that was the difference. But it's not. It's it's not. So I'm not, even if the money is coming from federal funding, I'm not comfortable with that high of going up to that amount. And when Matt gets here, he can explain it.
Like I mentioned, page 75 clearly explains what that dollar amount's being used for.
Yeah, it certainly does. But when he was here, I thought that was the overall total project. It was 86.5 for all of that work being done this entire time. Now I'm finding out that it's only for the extension period of 43 days, and I think that is very high. So I was actually going to move to table this, but if Matt's coming in to help us understand, that's fine. But this, I will say, this is probably the 3rd go-around with this particular company that we have had issues with. The third time. So I'm not really happy that we're having to go through this, and I'm not happy for the residents that have been affected, especially after they've all gone through a horrific time with storm and sewage. Now to have this extension done, to me, it's just, I'm not really happy with the service. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so, I don't know what page it's on, but in the contingency budget, to date, there's $377,000 in the contingency fund, right, which is a total part of the contract process. It's built into the contract. Yes, it may be a lot of money, but it's built into that process, so it's there. It's not additional money being expended. It was part of the total project cost that was approved. So So I suppose we could just hold this vote in abeyance. We could do that and move on to other items on the agenda and come back to it with the motion staying on the floor. Okay, thank you. So we'll skip item 9.1A and 9.1B, and we'll go to 9.1C. Britt?
Thank you. Mr. Sean Lewis, our senior project manager from Kraus Anderson, was present to discuss the construction of the public safety building. Overall, he reported overall everything is going well. Foundations are in and completed. Crews are working on the underground plumbing. Structural steel started to come in last week. Precast walls are set to be installed on September 9th, and we're still on schedule for that. Mr. Lewis also assured the committee that there will be an updated traffic control plan for the closure of Second Avenue, including the detours. As you've noticed, if you've traveled Second Avenue, we do have a closure right now between 8th Street and 10th Street. I'm happy to report the telephone line from Lumen, the former Quest, has been moved. The line's been moved, and we are good, so that's a good thing. There's a very small portion of contamination that is left on the southeast portion of the property, and we are just waiting for the determination from MPCA and the NTS if we can leave it in place, because it's not an area where we're going to dig, and it might be one of those kind of pollutants that's better to cover. So we're working on that right now to save us cost on there. After, we also discussed at the committee of the whole meeting, the solid waste and recycling services RFP. It was moved and supported to approve the current RFP draft for solid waste recycling services and bring it to this council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Council?
I'll move to approve the current RFP.
Councilor Motley moves to approve the RFP for the solid waste recycling services. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
It was moved and supported to approve the resolution for Jarrick and Associates contract as a city lobbyist for the amount of $36,000.
So move.
Move to approve by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Johnson?
No.
Baranzelli? Huffy?
Aye.
Motley?
Yes.
Friedlieb?
Aye.
Paulson?
Aye.
Beyondich?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
It was moved and supported to continue discussions of outsourcing the cleaning services.
We need a motion to continue that discussion.
If that's what the council chooses, or if you want us to enter into a contract negotiation with the one respondent. We
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilor Motley.
Brett, what would be your recommendation to the council?
really a council decision. We started this because of to see if it was a cost-saving measure. With the current proposal, it would be a cost-saving measure. It's very clear and very evident.
But yeah.
Councilor Freely?
But by what I've read, it would be a reduction in services, and that would be a concern to me. There's no way that this cleaning service can do what's being done 3 days a week.
And that's the part of the discussion we need to have, because it would be a change in the way the staff delivers their service, their portion of service.
Or staff.
Our staff, correct.
Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I wasn't really happy with some of the things that came forward in the proposal, like 3 days. There was a couple other things, like there was only 3 points in there. And I think there needs, if we're going to go down this road, we do need to have some more discussion, because I don't think this is ample.
This is 3 days of deep cleaning.
Deep cleaning.
Deep cleaning is what it was specified as.
Okay, and then, so would we be retaining our current staff in the positions that they are currently in, just maybe utilizing them in a different way to clean?
That's a discussion the Personnel Committee would have to have, is how would we utilize those staff? It is by state statute, it's a management right to determine the job positions, the descriptions, and the work they do, and how many we have in those positions. We would have to take those job descriptions, take a look at them, and see how we're going to use them differently.
And my other concern, and I'm just going to throw this out there, because when we had talked about the overall operations of the building, that anybody that was in the building needed to be certified in Safe Sport. So having cleaning crews that are not city employees involved with cleaning locker rooms where there are young students, that was a concern of mine. And I think that that would need to be really, really vetted out and talked through.
That's the locker rooms historically have been the utility workers' job to clean. And that would potentially stay the same. That would be a discussion we'd have to have.
Okay, so if we're having a conversation and no one is going to actually lose their position, I would be okay having that conversation. But if we can't save money and still retain those positions, I don't know, it would be a waste of time to have that conversation. So do you think that we would be able to retain the workers that we have and still have this deep cleaning conversation and still save money?
There's a lot of variables there that we'd have to discuss.
Okay. I'm open for discussion, but the one response that we got, I do not feel that it was adequate or enough for me to move forward on even talking to them further. I think we need to establish a little bit what we're looking for. So I don't know where that leaves us, but that's kind of my position on it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
I will move that we continue having the discussion about outsourcing cleaning services at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Support.
Moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? So I just have one clarification. So we do this, by doing this, is that gonna, will that compromise the integrity of the cleaning that we currently do at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center?
Discussion we'll have to have.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
Can I get, Mayor,
Yes, Pam. Pam.
so is this only for the Iron Trail? Because that's what I thought I heard you say, and
No,
this,
I apologize. It's the outsourcing of all
buildings.
cleaning.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. And if I may, Mayor?
Yes,
I
please.
think part of the confusion is cleaning services is titled like it's a company, and it's not. It's just the cleaning services. We're not talking about a specific company in our discussions. We're talking about generic cleaning services. So I want to clarify that as well, that this is not about a single entity. It's about city buildings and our processes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you read back the motion, please, and then we'll have additional discussion and then vote.
moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Motley, to approve to continue discussions of outsourcing cleaning services at city building locations.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Freely.
Yeah, I'm not in any of these buildings on a daily basis, but my impression has been that the people that we have doing the cleaning in our city are doing a very good job. When I walk into the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, it looks spit cleaned and polished when I walk in there. And I know Jimmy does a good job from everything I see in this building in the minimal time that I am in this building. So if this would jeopardize the exceptional work that's already being done in the city, I would not be in favor of moving forward with this. Thank you.
So the motion is to continue discussions, not to make a decision on a contract. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Baranzelli?
Yes.
Huffy?
Aye.
Motley?
Yes.
Friedlieb?
No.
Paulson?
Aye.
Beyondich?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
It was moved and supported to set an interview committee of Counselor Johnson and Friedlieb to conduct concessionaire service interviews for the Iron Trail Motor Event Center.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the resolution for the sexual assault lease of the office space in City Hall.
Moved by Counselor Freelieb to approve. Is there support? By Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll hold these two items on in advance until Matt gets here. Any other items?
I just want to point out that we did have Julie Johnson and Tom Prosen from the tennis board, Tennis for All board, at our meeting to talk about some things that they're working on down at the tennis facility. I want to give them kudos for having a much better budget this year, much better revenue source coming in. It's, you know, it's with a board that changes and can change every now and then. You're often at the whim of the board, and right now we have a really great board and they're doing some really great things. And we met with them this week to talk about how they can start accepting credit cards. So we're working with them on getting that so they can make it a little more accessible for anybody at any time of the day to get in there and use the facility. So.
Yeah, they're doing see that new president, she's
Great job.
yeah, awesome financial whiz, and so moving forward to that. So thank you. Anything else to come before the committee
Nope,
reports?
just back to the
Okay,
two
we have
things that-
Matt Reed.
with
Thank you,
Yep.
Matt, for racing in here. We appreciate it very much. We're on item 9.1 C. No. A and B, sorry, I scratched a bunch of things, I can't read the numbers now. A, which is adopt a resolution to approve Casper Construction Change Order Number 2, a request for contract extension for the 2023 street project for 10th and 13th construction to October 12th, 2024. And I think the concern that was raised, and you watched part of the meeting?
Yeah, I caught, I guess, probably the latter half. I guess Britt said there was some questions, so I flipped it on YouTube to try to watch what I could. And so I apologize, I didn't catch all of it, but I'd be happy to try to clarify and answer questions and do whatever I need to do here.
Okay, thank you. The question is, well, I'll refer to Councilor Paulson. Go ahead, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so we were just talking about like the extension part of it. And my question was, if I agreed to say yes to the extension, are we then obligated to accept a change order request if another change order request? When you were here, you said no, that a change order request may or may not come forward, but you have the option to say no. Okay, so that's A. Then B, we got down to B, and we had some conversation that B is the ultimate, because we're doing the extension then, there needs to be additional monitoring by SEH. And so when I think you had approved it, I was under the assumption the difference was $7,400. But when the that's in our resolution in the packet, it says, and so we deducted how many days of work it was extra, which was 43 days of an extension that SEH would be monitoring, and the total not to exceed $86,500 for 43 days. That seems way high.
So 86, if you look back a couple pages, let me see. I'm sorry, it's on my phone. I'm not
No, that's
real
okay,
prepared
Matt.
here because I wasn't planning on coming. But if you go to the first page of the supplemental letter agreement, I don't know what page that is in your packet, but a couple pages back from the price, there's a breakdown of what that entails. So there were two parts. There was the resident project representative. That's the person that we have on site full-time that is out working with the construction crews and trying to keep order with everything. And then there was the construction staking. So the RPR, I spelled out kind of how I came up with the number that I came up with. And it basically amounted to an additional 8 weeks at 65 hours a week, which 42 days isn't quite 8 weeks, but I know how these things go. And so I overestimated a little bit in hopes that if we get to that point where we that I'm not standing here saying, okay, I need another week. So my point was to try to get this all encompassing in hopes that we would have it covered, and hopefully they'll finish sooner, and it'll be less than that. 65 hours a week, believe it or not, that's what they have been working. They've been working Monday through Saturday for the last several weeks trying to get caught up. And so that's where I figured on the 65 hours a week. Hopefully as when they got less crews and they start to slow down a little bit, we may not even have to be there 65 hours a week. They might not have to work Saturdays, which all of that would start to back off as they get towards the end. I just don't know right now. They're going gangbusters. They've had 3-4 crews out there the last couple of weeks. And I know they're dropping a crew right now. They're getting ready to go into the intersection of 12th and 13th here next week. So they're getting closer. They made a lot of progress the last couple of weeks. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I got a construction meeting with them again tomorrow, where I hope to get another update on what they're thinking. So I guess what I'm trying to answer, Counselor Paulson, is where the time came from. That's what's spelled out in the agreement, how that got calculated.
But then, can I ask, why should the city have to pay that, even if it's out of the contingency fund, and even if this is federally funded project?
Yeah.
If Casper needs this extension because of whatever circumstances, why should we be on the hook for that? I don't understand that.
So, okay, so I'll just explain this. I'll explain how the project has gone, and you can make your own judgment whether or not you should pay it or not, but.
I mean, Matt, we have the letters in here of what has happened.
Yep.
You know, with the wet conditions.
Yep.
We have all that in here, and what, I was fully intending to support this going forward, just to the extension, but I thought it was only an additional, when Counselor Friedlieb had made the motion, I thought it was just the difference of $7,400, not an additional up to $86,000.
Right.
And I think that's crazy. In spite, I mean, does Casper not have insurance? Or if projects don't go as good as they need to go?
Okay, so the way the contract is set up is it's set up with, the start date is not specified. So they start when they can start. They started the middle of May. They were able to get started earlier than normal this year because of the weather. We put a substantial completion and a final completion date in the contract based off of what we think the project would take on a typical year with some rain days, things like that, to get it done. And then from there on, if they go past the substantial completion date and the city incurs additional costs, there is a liquidated damage clause in the contract, whereas the contractor would be responsible for X number of dollars a day covering any additional costs that the city might incur.
By extending that, we're eliminating that for ourselves.
And so correct. So the contractor came forward and said, hey, we had some unforeseen conditions. Yeah, we signed a contract that we'd get it done by August 30th. Because of the reasons they gave, they're asking for an extension to October 12th. You're correct. If you extend this completion date, that would push the liquidated damage clause out to October 12th. So if they don't make it by October 12th, then it kicks back in again.
And then if we don't approve the substantial, or the extension, can they quit the job?
Well, they sure could, but we have two things on that. If they choose not to keep going, the liquidated damage clock's gonna keep ticking, which is not in their best interest. Secondly, they have a performance bond on the project, which if they don't perform
Then
the work.
why would we assume the risk to do this extension and eliminate the ability to use the language that's currently worded in the contract?
You
I mean, if it
wouldn't,
was only $7,400, I wouldn't be saying a word. But up to $86,500 because they need an extension, to me, I'm not gonna vote for that. So I
that's
thank you
fi-
for coming in, because it was totally different when you were here at the committee of the whole, what my understanding was.
Okay.
So thank you.
yep. And so maybe I'll just touch on that. And so of course, you don't have to approve their extension. And we can see where the project ends up. That's totally your prerogative to do that, okay? It's not gonna be quite as simple. I'll just warn you, it won't be just quite as simple as just assessing liquidated damages or going after a performance bond. There will end up being, well, I'm speculating, but based on my experience, there will be attorneys involved, and Casper will try to justify their extension and all of that. So it's not just a matter of the contract says this, that's where it's gonna stand.
And I don't want to get
So-
legal wrangling happening, but Matt, this is the third project with this company that we have had trouble with. Midway, what was the street one they just did where the driveways, didn't fill the driveways enough? This is the third project now that we've had trouble with them. And I don't think it's fair that the city has to foot the bill and extend a substantial completion date, and then that completely takes our ability, it undermines the original contract for the liquidated damages. So
That's
I
up to you
don't-
guys, yep.
I mean, but that came forward with your recommendation at the committee of the whole.
And I'll be honest with you, knowing what I know, I will say, I'll tell you guys, I don't feel that the request is unrealistic from what they experienced in the spring. That's why I brought the recommendation that I did.
Then maybe they should pay the up to $86,000, not
Yeah.
us. They're the ones getting the extension for free.
But based on what they presented as a case for that. So I'll just say, it's totally up to you guys. I'm just trying to provide you with the information. Whatever you guys decide to do is certainly up to your prerogative. And you're right, Counselor Paulson, if you extend it, that goes away till October, so.
Okay, thank you. Sherry, do you have something you'd like to add before we go to Counselor Johnson?
Yes. Matt, would you mind explaining the $377,000 in the contingency fund and what can we use it for?
Sure. So when we, and I think I have it outlined in the attachment as well, yes, it's in there, okay. So when we took bids, we got the bid price. When we go out to get the bond, we account for the funding we have, the amount of money that we think we're going to need to complete the project, which is the bid amount plus a contingency, plus all your soft costs, engineering, legal, those types of things. Those are all figured in. The $377,000 that Sherry referenced is the contingency fund for unforeseens, for whatever, change orders, additional fees, whatever it is, related to the project. So that is built into the budget. Right now, we have not, that I can think of, we have not seen any change orders. This is only the second one in it. So the whole contingency is still there is what I'm getting at.
Can I finish on that thought, though? So if there is that much contingency and we don't use that, can't you pay that to pay the bond down faster?
It goes away essentially. You pay off the contingency you don't use.
So
Yeah.
it's still on the dime of the taxpayers, no matter what.
It
No matter
is.
how much is in the contingency fund. Because if we don't spend it, it goes down. The amount of the bond goes down then.
Your payback would be quicker because
Your
the
payback
bond is already
your
paid
payback
for.
is quicker.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But that's what it's for.
Oh, thank you. Counselor Johnson, then back over to Counselor Freedom. Counselor Johnson.
First of all, Matt, thank you for giving up your family time to be here. It's
That's
helpful
okay.
to hear directly. I think one of the things that's coming across my mind is that we said last week we would take care of this, and now we're saying we're not. And I think it puts the city in a precarious position moving forward with contractors. I think that because there's $300 and some thousand in the budget, and we're paying you for the extra time, we're not paying Casper for the extra time. We're paying you for your services that we are going to need, whether or not it's Casper or somebody else. SEH has to be present during the construction of the street to ensure that it meets our standards. And if we stop with Casper for some reason, and it's another contractor comes in, there's going to be a lot more time that needs to be put in updating them on where they need to be, what they need to do, and costs go up. So I appreciate and am on board with holding our contractors to their original contract, but at last Tuesday's meeting, the argument was fair. It was true. We've had some massive rain. That's why they wanted the contract to extend. I'm guessing we didn't get billed from you on those days either because your folks weren't out there working. Is that correct?
When we did not bill when we weren't there, no.
Okay.
But I could, if I could?
Yes, please.
So and I think I brought this up on Tuesday, Casper did try to work through as much of that as they could. And I'm not defending or I'm just explaining what happened. And so we did have some time out there, yes, as the project was going along, which we then billed for. Of course, when they weren't working, we weren't there.
Right.
So yes, correct.
So I think it's in the city's best interest to approve the extension to October 12th and to pay SCH for the services up to that amount. Because again, in my experience here, SCH has not steered us wrong on their services. They've not overbilled us. As a matter of fact, there's been times where you've stepped up, if I remember correctly, and taken care of some stuff that you didn't necessarily need to. So I appreciate that coming from SCH and your professionalism as you continue to work with us. So I am ready to approve both the contract extension and the payment for SCH to get this project taken care of before winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, and I don't know how I biffed it, Matt. When I looked at the proposal for additional service for work proposed, seeing the $79,000 crossed out and moved to $86,500, to me, that meant that was a $7,500 difference. So I apologize for that misinterpretation of the data that was provided, for one thing. And the reality is contingency monies are put into contracts for a purpose, and those purposes are for unforeseen, out of our control circumstances that occur, which were significant in this project, without a doubt. And so when we look at utilizing monies to overcome those issues that come into play, the contingency money is what we look to be able to fill that void. And we don't use contingency monies to save taxpayer money on projects of this magnitude. So I too have to agree with Councilor Johnson. We have to move forward and we need to conclude this project. And yes, it would be nice to pay down the bond earlier, but the first priority is to complete the project and to continue to have the oversight that you provide for us. So I agree, we need to move forward with this ASAP and approve both of these issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Okay, Councilor Beyondich, and then we'll go back to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I appreciate you coming in. I also don't want to hold up the project. I know the residents in that area have put up with enough. So I don't want to hold up the project. And I don't, I get the contingency fund, and trust me, I'm the first one that says no. But I don't want to stop this project either. So I appreciate you coming in and explaining a little bit more on how all of it happened. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. It is imperative that this project be completed. It is the way in which we go about approving or not approving. And I don't know if all of us would have approved on Tuesday's meeting if it was understood that it was an additional on top of. And then by extending this request, we're basically cutting off our own ability to come back for any damages. I agree, I don't want to hold up the project at all because it needs to be done. It's imperative, it's a thoroughfare street. But I don't want to approve the additional dollars expensed because Casper is the one extending the time. So why shouldn't that be Casper's responsibility? I mean, that's my hangup. If it was only $7,500, I wouldn't have a hangup. But this is a lot of money. And if I vote for yes in favor, because I don't want to hold the project up, but I don't think I'm going to vote to expend the dollars. Because I think they should be paying those dollars for this extension. So that's, I will vote in favor of moving the change order to extend, but I will not be voting in favor of expending the 80, up to $86,500.
Okay, thank you. So if, Matt?
I'll make one recommendation. If you don't plan to spend the 86.5, don't approve the change order. Because if you approve the change order, you don't have any recourse.
Good, thank you. So to put things in perspective from, my perspective, is that we have a construction project. We have documents. We have contingencies. All those things are in play. We're discussing the $86,000 cost associated with the extension that you have to incur for the services that you provide, the professional services you provide. The other aspect of it is if Casper Construction or whatever construction company on any contract was working on a project and there was no justification for a delay, I wouldn't approve it. There is justification for the delay because of the significant problems with the rain and the delays, the additional stuff that was found, how deep they, all those kind of things that were unforeseen. And so they put additional crews in there within the project scope of what they're required. They didn't ask for a change order to approve all that. So they're working hard to try to get it done. I share some concerns with Councilor Paulson regarding, the issues with Casper Construction. There's others that will be discussed later on about how they're doing about their construction stuff, but this is off to that side. So there's $377,000 in the contingency. That's what the contingencies are for. You look, if the bottom line is it's $86,000 as opposed to $40,000 or whatever the case may be, but the bottom line, the project has to get done. It's a long-term benefit for the city. We're cognizant of our needs, or what our finance situation is, but this is built into the project and the bonds that we approved. Yeah, we'd like to pay the bond offer. Yeah, we don't want to pay the $86,000, not necessary. We don't want to approve a contract extension for that had no justification. But I think in this particular case, there was some justification for the extension because of the unforeseen issues that came about, the rain delays, all those kind of things, materials and all that. So I get it. So they're asking for the contract extension to October 12th, which is another 7 weeks or whatever the case may be. So I don't like paying the $86,000, but I think it's necessary we do so because it's a professional service that we provide. It's part of the project moving forward, and it's a long-term benefit for the community. So we can always make an effort to go after that $86,000 later on down the line with some other discussions with Casper Construction or however method we use to accomplish that. But the project can't be delayed. And by not approving this contract extension, where are we? Is the project going to get done? And then if it does, and if there's a delay with respect to the liquidated damage clause in there, how fast are they going to get that done? And what's the quality of the work that's going to be accomplished as a result of that in order to mitigate, any liquidated damage that they have? So it's a bad situation with respect to that. However, I'm supportive of the contract extension because there's justification for it. And obviously, the professional services that are provided, we have to pay for that too. So I'm supportive of it. So, Councilor Motley.
Matt, thanks for coming in. I also agree with the mayor, but I also agree with Councilor Johnson and a lot of what you said, Councilor Paulson. It pains me to pay more money, and I know we have a contingency fund, and I don't want to pay it either, but I also don't want to hold up the project, and I am not super happy about, I wasn't on the council prior to knowing, well, at least one of the things with Casper Construction, but I think we need to pay attention to them going forward, but at this time, I will be supporting both resolutions. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a current motion on the floor, and that motion is to adopt a resolution to approve Casper's change order number 2, request for a contract extension for the 2023 street project for 10th and 13th construction up to October 12th, 2024. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I will move the
Next item.
contract with SEH.
I'm sorry.
I'll move the contract with SEH.
Counselor Johnson moves to adopt the resolution for the supplemental professional service with SEH for the approved extension for the timeframe for the 2023 street project for 10th and 13th construction. Expenses will come out of the contingency fund. That has been moved and supported by Counselor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Huffy,
Aye.
Motley,
Yes.
Friedlieb,
Aye.
Paulson,
No.
Beyondich,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Barancelli.
A motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Anything else?
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments for Matt, for Mr. Reed? Counselor Beyondich? No, none. Okay, thank you. Thanks for screaming in here, Matt. Appreciate
you
that
bet.
very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else on the committee of the whole reports, Britt? Okay, thank you. We'll move to commission liaison reports. Does any counselor have a commission liaison report that they would like to provide today? Counselor Motley.
So on August 21st, the Parks and Recreation Commission had a meeting, and just a couple things I jotted down. The Friends of the Greenhouse had an update on September 21st. There will be a fall plant sale. That'll be going from approximately 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. With the Iron Trail Motors, they're looking, dates and everything to be determined. They're looking to have a first skate day, which will be free. Also, they're looking to have a meet and greet for the high school girls and boys hockey coaches. The music in the park, this is the last one. It's got about 26 minutes left. That was my other update. As far as grant applications, with the Silver Lake Park Improvement Project, they're looking to possibly apply for grants to focus on a splash pad. Brian's also working on grant applications for the Alcott Park Playground, which would include an all-inclusive playground for each age group and handicap accessible. And there is expressed interest by Cleveland Cliffs for the grants for that one. And I believe that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Motley. Any questions for Counselor Motley with respect to the report from Park and Rec? None? Thank you. I'll move on to another report from Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just here, I'm going to share, Friends of the Library is doing their annual book sale. The drop-off is September 7th, 10 a.m. through September 9th at 5 p.m. during regular business hours. Donations of books, puzzles, games, CDs, DVDs in good condition are accepted. No encyclopedias or textbooks. Items that are dirty, moldy, torn, smelly will be refused. There will be signs directing you to the drop-off. And then the book sale is Wednesday, September 11th through September 14th at the Iron Trail Motors, and it will be in the main arena this year, so there'll be plenty of space. We invite folks to either donate or to come and purchase. They're also looking volunteers to help out with book sorting as well as the days of the sales. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Any other commission liaison reports from the council? Seeing none, we'll move to item 11, department head reports. I'll move from left to right. Britt, any other reports you want to give?
I just want to give a shout out for the food truck festivals coming September 21st. We've got 30 food trucks lined up right now. It's going to be our biggest one yet, and there's a lot of new vendors, a lot of old vendors, a lot of favorites. A lot of the businesses are doing things. We'll have a duck pond for the kids. We'll have a duck pond for the adults. So it should be a good time. Should be fun. So we encourage everybody to come down starting at noon on September 21st for Revive Virginia's Food Truck Festival.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Britt. Did you want to give a shout out for I know the health fair don't run down the road, but we have a health fair coming up, but we'll have an email about that.
October 10th will be the Employee Wellness Fair, and we'll be doing a blood drive. We need 35 people to sign up for blood donations, so we really encourage all employees to think about giving blood.
Very good.
October 10th.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Okay, Brian, anything from legal?
Nothing from legal, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Pam, any information to disseminate to us? Okay, thank you. Sherry, or
I'm sure everybody's waiting for the audit. Walker Grew and Honey, Carly from Walker Grew and Honey said that there's just a few items left, and hopefully next week we'll have an audit.
okay, thank you. Jenny, anything from your department? None whatsoever? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I just want to apologize to the residents, and I think we all share this, for the angst and the frustration and trying the patience on these construction projects all over town. It's significant on 12th Street, as we talked about before, on 6th Avenue from 9th, from all the way up to 13th Street, 17th Street South. It's a lot of construction to be endured for this period of time, and hopefully by the end of the fall, we'll have some nice roadways for everybody. But I know that you've experienced a lot of angst, so we appreciate your patience moving forward. And I know that other councilors bring in calls, and I have, and we're happy to come and listen to what you have to say, try to resolve the issue that you have, and that's our job to do so, and we'll continue to do that and try to minimize the angst that you have and the inconvenience you have during these construction projects. And a shout out to our our Public Works Department, Jim Rosvid and the crew. They've done, I would say, a phenomenal job in trying to do all this patchwork around the town, all the hot mix. They've been everywhere, and it's been noticed by the general public. So the more they notice and the more work that's been done, the more calls they receive about our alley or our street. And he's got everybody on the list. He has them working all day long. And so if you have a major problem with or concern, they'll put it on the list. And I know putting on the list means maybe 6 months or a year from now. No, he'll come and look at it and give you an idea what can be done temporarily and what the permanent fix is going to be. Mr. Rosvid has been very amenable to meeting with all the residents, so you can certainly give him a call if you have a question or concern, and you can call the direct line at Public Works, and that's 218-748-7515, 218-748-7515. Chris, the administrator assistant, will be more than happy to assist you. And we're making every conceivable effort to take the Yogi Bear approach to roads and streets. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. And our staff has been taking that fork in the road and doing a lot of very hard work. So I want to thank them for that. So we do have hardworking people working for us moving forward. And I can't say that the park is looking really good. Really good. And so we get a lot of comments. I got some calls from people who have park benches that are being placed all around the park, and they commented how nice Alcott Park is, how nice those benches are, and how they appreciate the phone and all these little wood carvings that they have. So we're getting a lot of good compliments of things that we do. We have more recreational activities to develop, as Councilor Motley had indicated with the splash pad. The other things, it's always about the money, trying to seek additional funding, so we're all trying to do that. And I want to thank our staff, Britt and Sherry and Jenny and Pam and everybody who, it's a tough, with the elections coming up and with the budget and with the audit and a lot of grant applications and things, and it's a juggling in all that administrative work moving forward. Britt, I think you're doing a great job for us in that regard. So, I mean, we're trying to do the best we can to provide the services that you need and expect, and we're continuing to try to do that. So on behalf of all of us, and thanks for your patience and your understanding moving forward. So we all have our heart in this. Every one of us that are elected and officials, have the best interests of the city in mind. And I think we all agree, if I may, that the health and safety of our community is the most important thing. So whatever you can do to protect the health and the safety of the community, which is the road, street, whatever it is, that's our job. And so we'll do the best we can to try to accomplish that. So thank you, everybody, for your patience. It's been a long meeting. Nothing else to come before the council tonight. except for,
Did we have council reports?
pardon?
Did you have council reports?
You know what? We're going to have them right now.
Thank you.
Council reports, Councilor Freely.
Well, I'm going to apologize up front if this, at the risk of this being interpreted as political groveling, because it's not something I would normally engage in, but I think it's imperative for me to publicly state my appreciation to both Representative Lissagard and Senator Housechild for procuring the $3 million to improve the emergency services at the Essentia Hospital in Virginia, because it did in fact positively impact our residents in this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Okay, I apologize, I skipped through. Any other council reports? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we will adjourn to our next council meeting, which is Tuesday, September 10th, 2020, or 5:30 PM, right here in the newly renovated council chambers. We stand adjourned. Thank you.